The snow came down like a curtain, thick, silent, unrelenting. My wipers couldn't keep up. They slapped back and forth like a metronome counting down to something I couldn't name. I hadn't driven this road in years, not since Mom's funeral. Now it was Thanksgiving Eve, and the world looked like it had been scrubbed clean, as if someone tried to erase what was too painful to remember. Colby hadn't answered my last message. I told him I'd be there before dark. No response. Typical. Lately, everything felt like a one-way conversation with him, just me, talking into static. A voice on the radio cut through the drone of the heater, whiteout conditions expected near Traverse City, travel only if necessary. I lowered the volume and muttered, necessary's a funny word. Mom used to say, family isn't about who's there when it's easy, it's about who's there when it's hard. That line echoed louder than the storm outside. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, watching the miles tick by. It wasn't just snow on the road, it was everything unspoken between me and Colby, between me and the family that never fully made room for me. Each mile I drove felt heavier, like dragging a past that refused to let go. When I finally turned into the old driveway, the tires crunched over untouched snow. No tracks. No signs of life. The porch light flickered weakly, casting a sickly yellow glow across the drifted steps. I sat for a minute, engine running, the heater blasting. I didn't want to get out. I didn't want to confirm what I already feared. But I did. I grabbed my overnight bag and stepped into the cold. The air bit through my coat. I reached under the flower pot, fingers numb, and found the spare key, same place as always. Colby used to joke, might as well leave the door open with that hiding spot. I let myself in. The silence hit like a wall. No heat. No scent of turkey. Just a faint trace of cinnamon in the air, like something that had already happened and been forgotten. I flipped the switch, nothing. The clock on the wall was frozen at 3:27 p.m. Colby? I called. My voice disappeared into the rooms. I stepped further inside. The kitchen was clean. Too clean. A note sat on the table in his handwriting, left early. Enjoy the quiet. Left early? Where? Why? On Thanksgiving Eve? The coat rack was bare. His suitcase, gone. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. You've reached Colby Maris. I let the phone drop to my side. Then I saw him, Harland. He stood at the edge of the hallway in that old flannel robe, like he hadn't moved since last winter. You shouldn't have come alone through that storm, he said. Calm. Too calm. Something shifted in me. I took in the living room. The mantel was bare, all the family photos gone. Except for one, Trina. Of course. Last year she'd taken credit for the pie I spent all day baking. Everyone laughed. Colby didn't say a word. I'd smiled through it. But it stuck. That same silence hung over the room now. Colby's coffee mug was still on the side table. Half full. Cold. I turned to Harland. He didn't say anything else. Just sat in his chair and stared. The house felt suspended in time. Like it had been waiting to forget me. I whispered, he didn't even wait to see if I made it. No tears came. Not yet. I was past that. Instead, I started noticing things, the missing photo albums, drawers ajar in the study, one of Colby's watches gone from the shelf. I should have called someone. But I didn't. I unpacked my bag like I meant to stay. I didn't drive through hell to turn back now. I stood in the middle of the living room, alone but not broken. Not this time. They said you wouldn't come, Harlan said suddenly. I looked at him. Who's they? But he just rocked, the chair creaking under his weight. I didn't push. Not yet. That night, I moved through the house like a stranger. I brushed my teeth in the same bathroom where Colby and I used to laugh about old age catching up. I changed into sweats, crawled under the same covers we once shared. That's when I saw it. His phone charger, still plugged in beside the bed. No phone. I opened the drawer, expecting a book or some junk mail. Instead, a printed email. Property transfer confirmation, Drever Estate Holdings. My name wasn't on it. The ink was fresh. I stared at it, breath caught somewhere between shock and fury. They moved the assets, before I even got here. Outside, the wind howled. The walls creaked. I could hear the soft rock of Harlan's chair, still going. I looked out into the blizzard. This storm isn't outside anymore. I woke up stiff on the living room couch, coat still zipped up to my chin. The fireplace was cold. No embers. No ashes. Just a hollow brick mouth, gaping open like it had something to say but forgot how. The house was still. Not quiet, still. That kind of still that feels like someone just left, or worse, someone never meant to return. The morning light crept in through the front windows, dragging across a half-eaten pie on the kitchen counter. Same pie I smelled last night. No plates. No forks. Just crust picked at, like someone had started a holiday and quit halfway through. I walked slowly into the kitchen. Cupboards hung open. Bowls gone. A few mugs, mismatched. No matching sets. Silverware drawer looked raided. Pots, pans, half missing. Like the house had been picked apart with intention. Harlan sat at the table. His breakfast tray sat in front of him, untouched. Oatmeal congealed in the bowl. He wasn't eating. He was staring out the window like it would show him something he already knew. I pulled a chair and sat, slow and deliberate. So, I said, keeping my tone even, when did they all leave? He didn't look at me. Just blinked once and said, weather turned fast. Folks headed out early. Not an answer. Not really. I stood, needing motion. My legs felt wired. My hands couldn't rest. Trina's mug was on the island, white ceramic, gold trim, lipstick mark perfect and recent. It sat like a centerpiece, like a trophy. She hadn't been here this morning. But she'd been here long enough to leave a mark. Last Christmas, she'd rearranged the entire kitchen. Claimed the flow was wrong. Let me make it more modern, she said. She moved my spices. My coffee. Even the knives. I let her. I let her because Colby said, she means well. She always meant well, for herself. I opened the pantry. Her snacks were still there. Granola she liked. Those fancy crackers she claimed were for guests. Eye level, neatly stacked. My instant coffee, my shelf of soup cans, gone. The kitchen didn't feel like Colby's anymore. It didn't feel like mine, either. Trina always knew how to make a place feel like hers, Harlan said, without turning from the window. I looked at him. The words didn't sting. They just settled. A truth too bitter to argue. I headed upstairs. The master bedroom door creaked the way it always had. Familiar. But the closet was half empty. Colby's side, wiped clean. No flannels. No jeans. Just hangers swinging like someone left in a rush but didn't forget a thing. The bathroom counters were bare. No toothbrush. No razor. His little bottle of blood pressure pills, gone. He didn't just leave. He withdrew. I stepped into the study. I had a backup drive I kept in the desk. Legal stuff. Contracts. I pulled the middle drawer, missing. The whole thing. Gone. Harlan's voice floated up from downstairs like he knew what I was thinking. Some things weren't meant to stay. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a dramatic exit. This was premeditated. Back in the kitchen, I started opening drawers, not searching, hunting. That's when I found it. My grandmother's paring knife. Old, with the worn wooden handle. I brought it when Colby and I first married. Trina mocked it once, said it belonged in a museum. I'd hidden it in the far drawer, behind the sandwich bags, just to have something in that kitchen that was mine. I held it in both hands. Not for what it could do, but for what it proved. I was here, I whispered. I mattered. They'd missed it. In their careful, quiet erasure of me, they'd overlooked this one thing. And that meant they didn't know everything. That meant I still had room to move. Harlan finally moved. Sat at the table with his oatmeal, took a spoonful like it was a performance. Colby said you wouldn't want to stay here anyway. I let the words sit. Then I asked, so who handles the estate now? The deed, the will? He smiled. That grandfatherly kind of smile that used to mean comfort. Now it just meant misdirection. Let's not ruin the holiday, dear. I stared at him. That tone, that was the real dagger. The one that tells you you're wrong for asking. That the problem isn't what's being done, it's that you noticed. Sometimes peace, I said, slowly, is just the silence after the storm. Not the end of war. His smile held. I stood to grab a napkin. Opened the drawer. There it was. A glossy brochure. Drever Estate, a new vision. Photos. Renderings. Renovation notes. Plans. They weren't just clearing me out. They were replacing the memory of me. By late afternoon, the light in the house had gone gray. The kind of gray that dulls sound and makes dust look like snow. I couldn't stand the stillness anymore, so I went to the study. If I was going to be surrounded by ghosts, I might as well start cleaning up after them. The air carried a mix of cedar polish and old paper. Familiar, but wrong somehow. Books lined the shelves, though gaps marked where things used to be. My old journals were gone. Colby's business files, missing. It looked neat, deliberate, as if someone had erased him with professional care. When I tried to open the bottom drawer, it stuck halfway. I tugged harder. Something slid loose and fell to the floor, a white envelope, dust clinging to the edges. My name written in Colby's hand. I froze. The date in the corner, 4 months ago. I stood there, staring at it, the weight of paper heavier than I remembered love could be. For a second, I thought about putting it back. Pretend I didn't see it. But pretending was how we got here. So I opened it. No dear Zena. No warmth. Just precision. He wrote that he'd been considering separation. That being married to me had become unsustainable. That he was tired of being the middleman between me and his family. He said he'd spoken to a lawyer. That it was just a conversation. I had to sit down. The words didn't sting, they confirmed something I'd already felt in the space between us these last months. He'd been planning this quietly. Setting the stage. The next paragraph hit harder. He mentioned Harland. Said he'd been helping Colby understand the inheritance terms. That Harland believed a smoother transition was possible if I was less involved. Less involved. That phrase kept repeating in my head like a siren. The letter went on with words that didn't belong in marriage: quiet transfer, property reassessment, emotional incompatibility. I folded it slowly, running my finger along the creases. It wasn't the betrayal that burned, it was the strategy behind it. This wasn't about leaving. It was about removal. Eviction wrapped in civility. When I stepped out of the study, Harland was sitting in the dining room, reading the newspaper he never turned a page of. Thought I'd make dinner, I said. My voice sounded strange in the room. He nodded without looking up. You always did like keeping busy. I boiled water. Chopped vegetables. The motions felt empty, but grounding. By the time the stew simmered, the kitchen smelled like something human again. He sat at the table without being asked. We ate mostly in silence, until he said, too casually, Colby told me once that you always needed to win an argument. I kept my eyes on my bowl. And what did he say about losing one? He smiled faintly. He never learned how. I didn't respond. Silence was safer. Halfway through dinner, he spoke again. Did you know Colby's been rewriting the estate plan? My fork stopped midair. I didn't ask why. I already knew. I just asked, with who? He folded his napkin, the motion calm and precise. He had good advisors. Trina helped. She's always been organized. The room felt smaller. Like the walls leaned closer to listen. That dinner wasn't conversation, it was warning disguised as family talk. A test, maybe. To see if I'd flinch. I didn't. After clearing the dishes, I walked upstairs. My mind was sharp now, focused. If they'd gone to this much trouble to erase me, they'd left something behind. People always do. That's when I remembered the safe in the guest room closet. Colby rarely used it, said it was for sentimental stuff. I knelt down, brushed the dust off the dial, and tried our anniversary date. It clicked open. Inside were folders, insurance forms, a notepad titled Alternate Planning. On top, a printed email from Trina. Her words were clinical, like she'd done this before. Make sure all communication goes through your attorney. Protect yourself legally. One line was underlined: if she pushes back, claim she was never emotionally stable. I read it twice. My hands shook, not from sadness, but from the clarity of it. This wasn't misunderstanding. It was orchestration. They'd prepared the narrative. The fragile wife. The unstable spouse. The woman too emotional to handle family matters. And they'd sold it to each other until it became truth. Downstairs, I heard Harlan moving around, maybe washing his cup. Maybe listening. Maybe waiting to see what I'd do next. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A blocked number. For a moment, I thought it might be a mistake. Then I played the voicemail. Colby's voice, tired, uncertain. If you're hearing this, I guess Harlan got his way. He paused. I'm sorry. I should have told you everything sooner. The message ended. No second call. Just static. I stood there for a long time, staring out the window as the snow kept falling. The yard, the trees, the world, all covered in white silence. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I gathered the letter, the email, the notepad, and a pen. I stacked them neatly on the desk. Then I whispered, "Let's rewrite the story my way." The sun dipped behind the trees when I made my way downstairs. Shadows crawled across the hardwood, and the air smelled faintly of roasted garlic and something too sweet. I stopped at the dining room threshold. The table was set, 4 places, 2 chairs pulled out. Mine, and Harlan's. Colby and Trina were nowhere to be seen. A folded napkin rested on Trina's plate, and a small note said meeting ran long. Sure it did. Harlan stood by the sideboard, uncorking a bottle of Merlot. I recognized the label instantly, my pick from last Thanksgiving. The one I'd paired with Mom's cranberry roast. I hadn't tasted it since that night. He poured 2 glasses and offered one with that mild expression he wore when pretending nothing was wrong. They said to start without them, he said. I sat down, slow. Every movement intentional, like I didn't want to give away the fact that the emptiness at that table echoed louder than words ever could. We chewed through roasted lamb and root vegetables in silence. I let him fill the air with talk about weather and real estate trends in Leelanau. I didn't bite. I just listened. To the scraping of forks, the settling of dust, the way empty chairs accuse without speaking. They'd laid the trap. But forgot one thing, I'm no longer the woman who eats what's served without reading the ingredients. When dessert came, Harlan slid a folder across the sideboard. It rested there like an afterthought, next to the lemon pie I hadn't asked for. I didn't look at it right away. I finished my bite, took a sip of Merlot, and then picked it up. Manila folder, no markings, but heavier than it looked. Inside, papers titled Estate Transfer Proposal, Drever Holdings. My name was there. A proposal to grant me majority share. And in smaller print, at the bottom of the first page, subject to Zeno Whitlow's full release of all spousal claims. I closed the folder slowly, slid it back where it came from. Harlan didn't blink. Thought it was time to make things cleaner, he said. I met his eyes. Steady. Let's review it tomorrow. With counsel. He nodded. But his nod didn't say agreement. It said test passed. Or war declared. I swallowed hard, but not from nerves. From knowing exactly what that folder represented. Not a gift. A bribe. Not inclusion. Containment. And I wasn't biting. After we cleared the dishes, Harlan motioned toward the study. I followed, steps slow. The room was dim. One lamp lit a corner where an old portrait of Moira Calder hung. Her painted smile serene, back straight in a chair she never owned. Harlan stood beneath her, arms folded. I should have told you sooner, he said, his voice lower now. But I was afraid of what it would do to this family. I looked at Moira's painted face. Thought about how she'd hate what this place had become. You didn't protect her, Harlan, I said, my voice steady. You protected the version of her that worked for you. And made me the intruder. His eyes flicked to the fire that had long gone cold. I just wanted peace. No. You wanted silence. And now he had neither. Leaving him there, I walked back toward the living room. The house creaked beneath my feet, old wood remembering too much. Colby's briefcase sat near the armchair. Still unclaimed. I bent down and unlatched it. The hinges sighed. Inside, papers, pens, and a fresh stack of business cards. Whitlow and Trask, PLLC. My name. A law firm I didn't even know he'd registered. Cards blank. Unused. I held one in my hand, the weight heavier than any insult they'd thrown. He wasn't just leaving. He was replacing me with an echo. I put the card in my coat pocket, folded the estate proposal neatly, and walked out to the porch. The snow was falling again, soft but endless. The cold hit my chest, sharp and honest. I stood there for a long minute, watching the wind curl around the bare trees. Then I whispered, not to the night, but to myself. Tonight, I become the draft of my own legacy. The wind howled outside like it had a score to settle. I lay flat on the guest bed, covers pushed to my waist, eyes fixed on the ceiling that now felt too low, too close. The storm clawed at the windows, but inside, stillness. No tears. Not tonight. Harlan's voice echoed in my mind. Each sentence he'd uttered over the past week, measured, polished, soaked in self-preservation, played back like a cheap courtroom reenactment. For the first time since I walked back into this house, I hadn't cried. Whatever had been soft inside me had burned out. All that was left was dry wood and flint. I sat up, quietly. Reached for the small stack on the nightstand, the proposal folder, Trina's wellness brochure from the guest bathroom, Colby's blank business card, and the printed transcript of his voicemail. I added a fresh sheet of paper to the pile. It wasn't a goodbye letter. It was a warning. I didn't dress it up. I addressed Harlan directly. Acknowledged receipt of the documents. Asked for confirmation of my current ownership under Michigan state law. Noted that I'd retained legal representation. No warmth. No venom. Just ink and boundaries. At the bottom, I signed my name and wrote, I am no longer interested in peace. I am interested in clarity. It was nearly 2 a.m. when I folded the letter and slid it under the study door. The floor creaked once beneath me, then stilled. That sound, it didn't rattle me. It felt like punctuation. Back upstairs, I couldn't sleep. So I moved. Quiet, deliberate. I remembered Colby used to keep old tax documents in the toolbox tucked behind the laundry room cabinet. I needed proof of anything. I knelt, dug through screwdrivers and receipts, and found a zippered pouch. Inside was one of Colby's older phones. Thick, scratched, dusty. Probably hadn't been charged in years. I plugged it in by the kitchen outlet. The screen lit up slowly, sluggish like it had been woken from a coma. A family photo greeted me. From 3 years ago. All of us smiling in front of the boathouse. Before things curdled. I scrolled through the messages. Most were mundane. Bills. Reminders. A grocery list saved as a voice note. But then, one file stood out. A voice memo. From Trina. Her voice played through the speaker, soft but sharp. Tell her if she fights this, it'll get ugly. She has no allies left in this house. Don't make me remind her why she stopped visiting last Easter. I didn't blink. Didn't move. My hand wrapped around the phone like it had weight I hadn't registered. I replayed it. Then again. I saved it to my own phone, labeled the file, Exhibit A. The lie was never that they were indifferent. It was that they were passive. This wasn't neglect. It was a strategy. By 4 a.m, the thunder outside had picked up. I sat near the window, a cup of cold coffee in hand. Lightning snapped across the lake in the distance, followed by a rumble that seemed to rise from the floorboards. And just like that, I was back in the memory, our second year of marriage, a night not unlike this one. Colby had gotten into it with Harland at dinner. I stood up for him. Told Harland to keep his arrogance to himself. Colby said nothing. Not during the fight. Not after. That night I learned something about this family. Here, silence was currency. And I'd been broke. Now? I wasn't shouting. But I wasn't silent either. I walked out into the hall, the same hallway that used to intimidate me with its portraits and rugs and trophies from a past I never belonged to. Now, it felt narrow. Cramped. As if the house couldn't grow with me anymore. I wasn't scared. I wasn't small. I heard it then. Tires over gravel. I stepped to the front window. Headlights swept across the driveway. A black sedan. The door opened. Trina stepped out, fur-lined coat, umbrella, folders in her arms. No warning. No call. She was here. I didn't flinch. I whispered, "Perfect. Let her come. I've got a voice note for her too." Then I moved toward the stairs. Switched off the lights. And stood still in the shadows, waiting for the snake to slither in. The morning light filtered weakly through the frost-stained windows, casting long shadows across the Drever house. On the porch, half buried in snow, lay a thick envelope stamped confidential. The snow had settled overnight, leaving only my boot prints and the curved impressions of Harland's rocking chair. I carried it inside, the weight of it more than paper. I opened the envelope at the kitchen table. Inside, the summons for review of the estate plan. Whitlow and Trask, PLLC, already in the loop. Harland's face appeared in the window, calm, deliberate, as though observing a chessboard from above. They hadn't waited for my reaction, they had already moved the pieces. Shock surged, but beneath it, a cold resolve. This wasn't just exclusion. This was full-scale legal siege. Later, Harland invited me to the study for coffee. The portrait of Moira hung heavily behind him, her painted eyes fixed, her smile eternal. He began, measured, "Zena, I'm sorry I stayed silent for so long." I stayed standing, the edge in my voice deliberate. "You were never silent, Harland. You just spoke to everyone but me." He shifted, looking down at his cup. I believed the family needed unity more than confrontation. The apology was a trap. No ownership. Logic without fairness. I leaned closer, steady and sharp, "Forgiveness is earned. It isn't traded for power." He did not flinch, but the brief slip of mask was enough. By noon, the kitchen became the courtroom. Fogged windows, half-empty cabinets, a faint smell of burnt toast. Harland entered first, Colby and Trina behind him, a unified front rehearsed for effect. Trina smiled lightly, as if testing me. "We thought you wanted a quiet holiday, Zena." I sat, laying my phone on the table. Over my own savings? Over someone else's father? Quiet was your plan. Clarity's mine. Colby avoided my eyes. Harland shifted in his chair, fingers tightening around the armrest. The illusion of calm fractured, revealing the worry beneath the polished veneer. At lunch, a printed "Thank you, Susan" card from the wedding pile appeared in front of me. I had paid most of the expenses. The discrepancy was sharp. I screenshot it, scanned my bank statements, and saved everything to a secure drive. I texted Nadine, "Ready when you are." Betrayal ran deep, but my intent was clear, I would not be quiet. The snow outside picked up again, gusts rattling the eaves. I walked to my car and held the Whitlow and Trask business card I had found, fingers tracing the embossed letters. I whispered to myself, I came here through a storm expecting reunion. I found eviction. Now I steer the storm. Tonight, I would file the first motion, send the first public notice. Calm power coursed through me, the transformation from victim to actor complete. At 11:11 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Colby's voice came, low, strained. It's done. They took everything. I didn't know how else to. The line cut abruptly. I hit redial, no service. I climbed to the rooftop deck, boots crunching through snow, leaning on the railing. Traverse Bay stretched before me in faint, icy glimmer. The wind lifted a flake of snow into the air, swirling around me. So they took everything, I whispered into the night. Good. I kept me. I stepped back into the house from the rooftop deck, snow still clinging to my boots, the handheld recorder secure in my coat pocket. The halls were hushed, the only sound the faint hum of the furnace and the rhythmic ticking of the stopped clock in the corner. I carried the recorder into the living room where Harland, Colby, and Trina waited, shadows stretching in the dim glow of a single lamp. Harland gestured toward the sofa. Ready to proceed? I placed the recorder on the coffee table, nodding once. Tension pooled in the room, thick and expectant. I wasn't waiting anymore, I was confronting. Every gust of wind rattling the windows seemed to echo the storm I was about to release inside. My pulse steadied. This wasn't about fear. It was about exposure. I pressed play. Colby's voice filled the quiet, she won't fight us. She'll fade out. The recording shifted, and Trina's voice followed, sharp and cold, good. We keep it internal until the papers are signed. The room froze. Harlan's jaw tightened, Trina's cheeks paled. Their facade faltered. I met their eyes calmly. That tape isn't my question, they gave it to me. My question is, what are you going to do about it? The vindication hit like fire, the invisible now undeniable. Trina broke the silence, her tone a mix of smugness and challenge. You always knew you were the outsider. We thought you were fine with that. Her smirk tried to cut me down, but I let it slide. Funny, I said quietly, but sharply. I stayed silent thinking love anchors you. Turns out it anchors you until you anchor them. Harland leaned against the mantel. This is still about preserving the legacy, he said, carefully measured. I leaned forward, recorder in plain sight, my voice crisp. Legacy? It's about ownership. And you stole mine. The room shifted, control was fracturing. I reached into my bag and pulled out the printed folder, estate transfer proposal, Drever Holdings. I laid it flat between them, fingers brushing the paper with deliberate calm. I signed it. The ownership changes tonight. I'm the majority stakeholder. Trina gasped, Colby's eyes widened, and even Harlan's chair creaked under the weight of the moment. I knew this wouldn't stay in this room alone. Screenshots, texts, public record, the chessboard was flipped, and I had moved last. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling windows as if the house itself acknowledged the shift. I crossed to the window, looking out over the dark lake, snow piled high, and felt the absence of fear. Harlan poured whiskey and raised his glass, his voice steady. To Zena Whitlow, may she show us the way. I sipped slowly, letting the warmth and finality of the moment settle. Tonight, I wasn't just part of the family, I was defining its future. Before dawn, I moved upstairs to gather my overnight bag. Pausing under the portrait of Moira Calder, I noticed the watch Harlan had given me, faintly ticking in the dim hall. My phone buzzed with a single message from Trina: "We're leaving. Don't stop us." I didn't reply. Stepping out onto the porch, I drew in the crisp night air, whispering to the darkened estate, "Go ahead. I'll let you leave the old story behind." I stepped onto the porch to a scene I hadn't anticipated. Local reporters clustered near the gate, cameras pointed, microphones poised, and neighbors craning their necks from across the street. A large sign, carefully printed and anchored in the snow by Trina's team, announced an estate sale. My house, once private and quiet, had become a stage. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of attention, and walked inside, allowing the silence to fill the space. My eyes fell on another sign, perched boldly on the lawn: "Exclusive Drever Family Retreat, sold." My name was missing. I clenched my jaw but didn't speak. A neighbor waved with a mix of curiosity and admiration. "Big day for the Calder legacy, huh?" I offered only a measured smile. Disbelief tinged with power surged through me. The narrative had shifted. I wouldn't react blindly, I would guide the story. In the foyer, I confronted Trina and Colby. The cabin sale papers were spread across the piano, glossy and deliberate. "When I bought that cabin, you said it was mine. Now you're advertising it as Calder family exclusive," I said, voice calm yet firm. Colby stammered, "We just modernized the branding." Trina's response was equally polished: "Legacy requires consistency." I raised my voice enough for the waiting reporters to hear. Did consistency mean removing me? Anger hummed beneath the surface, tempered by calculated poise. Their claim to legitimacy met its equal. I retrieved the appraisal letter from my bag, flipping it open to the Drever Estate Holdings valuation summary. Reading aloud, I noted, "Property solely in the name of Trina Calder." Harland cleared his throat, attempting a veneer of calm. "Zena, you weren't going to stay." I replied with measured bite, "I drove through a snowstorm for a home. Not a billboard." Cameras clicked, lights flickered across the room. I handed the appraisal back, steadying my voice. "These are the facts. Now, what are we going to do?" The ledger laid bare their truth, and my next move crystallized. I moved to the front hall, positioning myself so the reporters could record every word. "I've accepted management of Whitlow and Trask, PLLC effective today," I announced, letting the statement sink into the room. "Any questions can now go to the office." Trina's face blanched, her calculated composure faltering under the unspoken shift of power. Harland lingered on the stairs, silent, his gaze tracing the determination I projected. I concluded, "Thank you for your time, I'll be upstairs if any more deals need signing." Triumph radiated quietly through my stance, the spotlight now fully mine. As the press dispersed, I retreated to the study, heart steady but alert. On the desk lay a sealed folder labeled "Response Strategy, December 1st. Inside, Colby and Trina's expectations for me to walk away quietly were detailed in stark clarity. I lifted my phone and live-streamed the folder cover to my newly established law firm followers, exposing the design they believed hidden. Outside, the snow began to melt, streaking the white walls with gray as if the house itself acknowledged the truth surfacing. I whispered, a private mantra for the storm I had now commanded, "Game on." I arrived at the law firm early, the morning sun cutting through the frost on the windows, highlighting the space that now belonged entirely to me. Sitting in the chair where I was once told I didn't belong, I spread out the final documents on the polished oak desk, confirming the full title transfer of the Drever estate and the woodland cabin under my name. My mind flickered to a winter long ago, when my husband had promised I'd never be left alone in the cold. The words had been both truth and betrayal, and now they echoed differently, tempered by hard-won clarity rather than lingering hurt. The calm of the office was complete, a stillness that wasn't peace, wasn't pain, just presence. A knock at the door brought a small delivery, a sealed envelope in his familiar handwriting. I set it aside, curious but cautious, and continued with the paperwork, each signature another quiet reclamation of what had been mine. Breaking the seal, I unfolded the letter, dated just days before he left. His words admitted the truth I had suspected but feared to confirm. He had known about my stepfather and Trina's collusion to isolate me. I thought if I stepped aside, they'd reveal who they truly were, he wrote. I was wrong to stay silent. My chest tightened. He continued, if you're reading this, I hope you took the house, the firm, everything. It was always yours. I paused, holding the paper, unsure whether to cry or simply fold it. The final line, almost a benediction, read, you always knew the law better than me. Now, use it. Bittersweet empowerment filled me. There was no romantic reunion, no rekindled warmth, but restoration of self-respect had its own weight and clarity. Later, I drove to the cabin, now fully mine. The snow lay untouched, quiet and pristine, the chaos of family drama held at bay. Inside, I lit the fireplace, placing the old photo of us face down on the mantel, not out of hate, but to clear the space for what was to come. The first flakes of a gentle snowfall drifted against the window panes as I stepped onto the porch, noticing faint boot prints leading away, not toward. Liberation wrapped around me. No one's return was required, no one's permission necessary. I could finally exist in this space on my own terms, unobserved yet sovereign. A buzz from my phone pulled me back, and I found a video link from a private server. Hesitant, I pressed play. There he was, my husband, months ago, captured on camera leaving a package on the cabin porch. The contents revealed themselves, the original deed to the cabin, untouched, never signed over. His voice carried through the video, you always said home isn't a place, it's when you finally stop apologizing for taking up space. A quiet gratitude rose within me, closure had arrived not with a flourish but with a whisper. I sat back and began drafting a press release for the firm, my hand steady. Calder and Whitlow PLLC will now offer pro bono legal services for elder women displaced from family estates. With deliberate care, I allocated a portion of the Drever estate to a shelter supporting women and aging caregivers. The remainder I left untouched, not out of fear, but to remember that some victories need no erasure, only acknowledgement. I placed my nameplate on the office door, steel, simple, unyielding. Later, leaving the cabin, I kept the lights on as a quiet emblem. The past can glow without guiding you. Solitude and sovereignty coexisted peacefully in the amber glow of the fire. Just as I prepared to leave for good, a knock at the cabin door stopped me. I opened it. No one was there. On the mat lay a single handwritten line on the back of a receipt, you did it. I smiled, shutting the door and lighting one last fire, the warmth curling around me like a promise. The past had its last word, now the future was mine to write.